Welcome to The Little Things We Hear Together, where we dive deep into Broadway cast albums to figure out why some hit harder than others. My name is Alex Asp, and my guest today is Paul Thompson. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be here, though it's actually Paul W. Thompson, according to Actors Equity Association. You know how we actors are about our names. Even though I'm not only an actor, which I guess is one of the reasons that you wanted me to come on and draw the full breadth of my experience and talk about a show that some people maybe have not heard of.
Yeah, what show are we talking about today?
Romance.
Yeah.
With a slash in between the words, apparently.
Not very consistent branding on that. On the playbill, on the album cover, there's no slash, but then I think technically there should be a slash. So
in the bios of some of the actors, they mentioned the show because they had done it off Broadway first, and they used the slash there.
Okay.
But the logo, the logo is just a heart shape in between the words, or the words in the heart shape.
Yeah. So this is, like you said, a show that a lot of people don't know about, possibly just because it got a bit overshadowed that season by Phantom of the Opera and Into the Woods, especially.
Correct.
And it's also not exactly well-known people involved. Music is by Keith Herman, lyrics and book by Barry Harmon, who neither of them have much of an impact outside of this show on the Broadway landscape.
Right.
Music director Kathy Summer, again, not a Paul Gemignani that people know about very well. Orchestrations are Michael Starobin, so that's a name that we know, which is good.
Yes, he'd already done Sunday in the Park, and
then he would do Assassins soon after.
Yeah, beginning of a long career.
Oh yeah, and then this album was released on MCA with the album producer Thomas Z. Shepard, the legendary Thomas Z. Shepard,
who I associate him with RCA, but he'd gone back to the early '60s even.
I think in '84 or so, or '86, somewhere in there is when he moved, I believe.
Right. But MCA didn't release too many CDs, but I bought it.
Very nice.
At the time. I think it even came in a cardboard long box, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay. But I have the MCAD release right here in my little hand, which I uploaded to my computer for purposes of repeat listening for this podcast. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then last, the audio engineer is Ben Rizzi, which is not a name that I've seen a whole lot yet, but we're still early in the podcast, so I'm sure things will become more kind of apparent of patterns of people as we go along.
Right.
So kind of hinted at it already, but what is your relationship to this album, this show?
Well, I saw the original production. So this was 1988, and it must have been in the summer. I don't remember exactly if it was Memorial Day weekend or summer proper, but I'm pretty sure that this is the trip where I saw Into the Woods and loved it so much, I gave up my ticket to Sarafina and saw Into the Woods again, and also saw Romance. And then I didn't look into it, but I think maybe the last show I saw was Anything Goes with Leslie Uggams.
Okay. So she
had left by then.
All right. Yeah, this is definitely an interesting season for sure.
I had only started going to New York 2 years prior, January of 1986, with 2 degrees in musical theater and a performing and music directing career in musical theater, and had never been to New York. And I thought, well, this is stupid. And so I went to New York and have been every 6 months ever since.
Okay.
I've seen every Tony-winning Best Musical since Cats.
Ooh. How many of the nominees?
Many of the nominees, but I've definitely seen the winners.
Okay. So what, this was nominated for Best Musical, did not win, but you saw it anyway.
Yes.
What is this show about, kind of from a high level?
It is 2 one-act musicals that are thematically connected. And I think the source material for both of them is French, if I'm remembering correctly.
2 separate French plays.
And there's only 4 people in the cast, and the male and female lead are the leads in both acts, supported by another man and woman. And it is similar to Sunday in the Park with George in that the first act is set in Europe in what seems to be turn of the century, 1890s, 1910 Vienna.
Yeah.
And the second act, I believe it says present day, which would be the 1980s on Long Island.
Yeah, unlike Sunday in the Park with George, other than the one song that's reprised in Act 2, there's very little to link them. They have a very different feel. The musical style is very different. All of the characters are different. They're not referencing each other. So it's kind of, you get 2 shows in one. And as we'll talk about in the album, it makes for a very interesting listening experience.
It does. Keith Herman, the composer, used a lot of pastiche in the first act. A lot of it is designed to sound like a Viennese operetta. It doesn't exactly, but it references that, and a lot of them are waltzes, which is appropriate. There are some 1970s pop rock songs in the first act, which we assume is his, true composer voice. The second act is almost entirely in that style that we now would call contemporary musical theater, which was emerging in the 1980s. But then as the 11 o'clock number, we have a sort of a 1930s music hall throwback when the two supporting players appear as the old age versions of the principal leads. Yeah. But other than that, the second act is more musically consistent. And I'd have to say the orchestrations sound fuller and more authentic in the second act because it's a small band and music is generally played by smaller groups. The orchestrations in the first act are trying valiantly to sound like a Strauss orchestra, a Romberg orchestra, but they don't quite.
Well, I guess maybe I was approaching it from the viewpoint of not expecting a whole lot because it's a smaller group. I mean, it's only 7 musicians, which is crazy.
Right.
But I thought the first act orchestrations sound huge, especially considering it's only 7 people. So again, maybe I just had my expectations set correctly to not expect too much from it. Like, yes, it wouldn't sound like those classic huge orchestras, but I think they imitate that sound far better than I would ever expect from this small number of musicians in the pit.
I would say that's fair. And I do have that sound in my head. I've performed in Merry Widow and Deflator Mouse and shows like that. And I played the violin growing up. So I know what that sound is like. And I was, like you, I was impressed that it sounded as good as it did, even though I'm like, where's the other 14 violins that you need? They're just not there.
But, making the most of what you have is a true Broadway classic. So they at least did that
And it
pretty
was
well.
at the Helen Hayes Theater.
Yeah,
Broadway's smallest. I think it's the only time I've been in the Helen Hayes Theater.
Yeah, that's not one I've been to yet.
They don't typically do musicals there.
No, because it's so small. It would be, for most kinds of musicals, a very cramped production. But for this, it works perfectly to have that tiny little theater.
Correct.
Which is really nice to see.
Yes.
And it makes sense that this came from off-Broadway in a very quick turnaround. It was downtown in November of 87 and then started previews on Broadway in April of 88, which that shows people were very enthusiastic about bringing it in and getting it in that season, because that's not an easy thing to get that turned around that quickly.
No, and I expect it was maybe easier then than it is now, but that is a quick turnaround, and it was not at the Public or Playwrights Horizons or a major off-Broadway house. So I'm not sure how the producers came up with the money or what the connections were exactly. This was the time on Broadway when American musicals were seen as difficult to get to Broadway. The economic structure was favoring London at that time. And, we'd gone through the season with Big River that had almost no other competition. And then Drood, which was like a one-man show for Rupert Holmes. Then here comes Les Mis first and then Phantom and Chess. They fumbled. But, the momentum was against traditional American musicals at that time. And maybe people were like, well, it seems European and it's tuneful and it's written by these young people, but it's only 4 people. It's technically a unit set. I mean, I think the walls just flip it around for the second act, and they brought in a couch and took out the 2 chaise lounges they had, but much cheaper running costs, and a theater was available, and they were like, let's do it. And it ran for 6 months, right?
Yeah, not bad. So it's interesting. The 2 leads are played by Scott Bakula and Alison Fraser.
Yes.
And Alison Fraser was not a hugely known name at the time. I mean, she had done, In Trousers, and she was part of March of the Falsettos. She's done a lot of stuff, but wasn't like a huge name that's going to bring in audiences just because of her. And Scott Bakula had done some Broadway work, but wouldn't really have his TV breakout until the following year.
Right. They were both just on the cusp of being better known.
Yeah.
And
so
I think I recognized
either.
Yeah, I think I recognized him from the cover art of Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down. And I knew her name because of the Bill Finn connection with the Marvin shows, and was excited to see her on that basis. But then a year later, I think, when Quantum Leap hit, I was like, that guy, I saw that guy like last year. And he'd been knocking around New York and had worked a lot, but was not breaking out until he got an agent and moved to Hollywood.
And then he did very well for himself there.
Right. But a Tony nomination for both of them certainly helped. And then she went from this, just in a couple years, into Secret Garden, for which she is best known, I think.
Yeah, and got her second Tony nomination. So Act one is, I think, overall, the vision is more complete and successful for me. I think Act two feels a little bit more kind of pulling us around in different directions that sometimes feels intentional, sometimes not. But part of what I think works so well for Act one is that it's almost entirely epistolary, where the story is being told through the two of them writing letters to friends. And I think
Right.
that can be very, very easily cloying and annoying, but I think they do it pretty well. And even watching there's a video that they shot and released, on VHS of the replacement cast, I believe. But they did a very good job of keeping that moving and feeling like, there's enough interaction between the two of them that it's not just letters. But I thought that was a very helpful framing device kind of for the structure of the first act.
Yes, though it's reminiscent of She Loves Me, with the letter writing and the pretending to be somebody that you're not, and, with costuming that also looks like a little night music, if you're a Sondheim freak. They do spend a lot of time talking straight out to the audience in terms of narrating these letters they're writing to their friends. It's interesting that the second act has the other two characters narrating straight out. So there's no fourth wall really in the whole show. It's all quite presentational in that way. And we should mention Deborah Graham and Robert Hoschauer.
Yeah, that's how I guess you say his name.
I'm not sure. They are mute in the first act. They bring in a couple of props and they do a lot of symbolic dancing, which is lovely on that video. But in the second act, they get to sing as characters who are ostensibly off stage asleep.
Right.
But they keep showing up and saying, like, can you believe, like, this is what they're doing here? That sort of thing. Another difference between the two acts is that the first act is a span of a couple of weeks, but the second act is the Greek unities of time and place. The second act takes place in 1 hour in the middle of the night. And where the leads from the first act are best friends wondering why they're not cheating on their spouses with each other.
Yeah, and talking about that in a lot of detail that feels kind of on the nose at times, but it's definitely different from the first act where it's about this kind of charade that they're both playing, pretending to be other people. In the second act, it's they know each other very well and are figuring out what that means for them.
It goes from period farce in the first act to it sort of feels like a Terrence McNally play. Love, Howler, Compassion or something for straight people.
Yeah. A lot of the second act does feel like a play with music added in rather than a typical musical structure.
Correct. Which is more unique and interesting in its own way. The first act, it keeps reminding you of a lot of things that musicals and operettas have done. And they even talk about how they love operetta in the first act. But the second act does feel quite unique, special. And I will say the one thing that both acts have in common is that neither one of them ends the way you think they would end.
Yeah.
They're both like, wait, that's neither satisfactory nor dumb. What was that again?
Yeah, I think that might have been part of why it didn't rise higher in the minds of that season, people choosing what show to see that season from word of mouth. Artistically, it is a lot of fun to think about, but I can understand it maybe being a little distancing to audiences at times.
The show as a whole was both interesting to theater people and people who run small theaters. Like, we can do that show. It's got 4 people in it. But also to fans of musicals that were not rock and not British either. It's definitely theater by theater people. And I guess you either like that or you don't.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's start diving into the tracks. Luckily, the opening number of each act is the title of the, show within a show. Act 1, we open with The Little Comedy.
Yes.
Which is, the comedy is that they're playing tricks on each other by pretending to be poor, because they're both upper class people who, for different reasons, want to try something different. But the track starts with a little miniature overture, which I think is really pleasant. I'm not sure why it's not its own track. I guess it's only a minute, but it's entirely separate from the rest of the song. So I would have liked it to be its own track so that if you want to skip straight to the song, you have that option.
Right. It is a nice sort of a fanfare type overture. And then on the recording blends into the opening number for Alfred and Josephine. Is that it?
Yeah. So we have the overture, which is really only for Act 1. None of the second act music is in there. And then we get one line of a kind of a pre-prize of the song Romance, Romance that will be at the end of the show.
Guess what's on the rage again, taking center stage again, romance.
So that's kind of bookending our singing for the evening.
Right.
And it's a nice little moment, but it does take her a couple seconds to lock in that last high notes before she has it totally in tune. And she's very exposed at that moment. So that's like our first line of singing is not the strongest, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. I think it's Deborah Graham.
Yeah, I think so.
Off stage. It seems like, because the women do sound different. Alison Fraser, I think, sounds incredible on this recording. Her sort of sandpapery voice really comes off well, but the opening line is not her.
Yeah, it definitely feels more like Deborah. Alison Fraser's accent is so spot on that tells you exactly who this character is.
Bowing low, he murmurs good day. Her eyes aglow, she bids him stay. His ad deceives,
her tone misleads. Sis boom ba, the little comedy proceeds.
It's that upper class kind of almost fake sounding British accent. I mean, she's American, so it is a fake British accent, but it sounds very putting on airs. And that tells you so much without even having to say a word of who she is as a character, which is, I think, very effective and a lot of fun because for me, it reminds me a lot of Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder with Sibella especially. She has that kind of a same accent with that same kind of frilly persona.
And, at times, the first act also reminds me of Gigi because of the time period and especially the sort of, upper class gentleman of leisure.
The little comedy.
the comedy of life.
And then her second number, so they each have a solo number after the opener. And her second number, Goodbye Emile, I was like, is this from My Fair Lady? This sounds like Lerner and Lowe, a patter song, and kind of like Show Me. But these numbers are setting up the time period and the wit of the first act, who each of these characters is, the fact that we're going to go back and forth between the two of them, and giving us their sort of prior circumstances as characters. That he has been dating someone and it hasn't worked out, and she is currently dating someone that she intends to break up with.
Yeah,
so,
the number, it's a good opening number. It sets the tone for the act very well. And then the next track starts with letters before moving into Goodbye Emile. So I think there's a really good amount of book scene included. It's not too much, it's not too little, but we get snatches of their letters to help us understand the songs that we're hearing, which I believe is a Thomas Z. Shepard special, that he is very skilled at that. So it's nice to have the letters at the beginning, which are both of them abridged versions of what's in the show. But it gives you the essential information of who they are, that he is sick of dating these silly upper-class women who only want his money, and she does not like the rich man that she's been dating because he's actually not that interesting.
You have no idea how dreary life in Vienna has become, especially if you are rich, unattached, and reasonably handsome. It is clear something wonderful will have to come along to excite me. Till then, send the Neapolitans my regards.
And then she gets to embellish on that first by having her full number as we go into Goodbye Emile. I love that it starts off with the impression that it's going to be a sad song with how she's singing, because we don't know at first how she feels exactly. All she's said so far is that her affair with Emile is ending, but she didn't editorialize that fact yet. And so it starts off slower, quieter, and then the joke turns that, oh, she's actually happy that it's ending, and she's the one that's ending it. And then it gets a lot faster and more of a patter song type of feel. But I think it's very well timed to have that turn where you get just enough of it beforehand that it does feel like oh, that's different. But it's not going on for so long that it's like, why are we halfway through the song and now changing what the song is?
Right. It's sort of maybe it's My Fair Lady and Gigi mixed together, right? But she's playing games with the words as well as with the fast pace, fast tempo of the song. She's like really enjoying the fact that she's going to break up with whoever this Emile is.
Yeah.
And in a way that, you would think a proper young lady wouldn't be so excited about breaking up a romance. Like how modern and daring of her.
I never shared your dreary views on politics and art. You often touched my body, but you never touched my heart. The best way to describe my feelings, knowing we must part. Hurrah, Emile, hurrah!
But she's got spunk and isn't afraid of mentioning that to everybody. He, on the other hand, is, Scott Bakula has so much natural charm and is a pretty good singer. He's not a great singer.
He definitely feels outmatched by Allison Fraser.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody would be, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know him as a Broadway performer, I think you'll be very impressed. And he clearly has a lot of training, but his charm and, charisma that served him so well on television, I think were readily apparent in this show.
Yeah, and we'll get to him a little bit more in the next song, but we're getting a little bit of him in this one as well. But one of the lyrics from Josephine that I really love is,
"It was never true romance, just a question of finance."
because you think it's going to be a matter of circumstance, because that's a well-used rhyming scheme in a lot of songs.
Right.
And this is actually more blunt and to the point of, it was just about the money. It was just, we both knew what it was. So I love that it kind of turns it on its head to be way different than you were expecting. And apparently, this practice was more common than I would have realized, that it had its own term of demi-monde, which is a woman who is kind of on the fringes of society, being supported by her wealthy lover, but not someone that she has any intention of marrying. So apparently, they both had a very good understanding of what this was, and she doesn't feel it's improper to speak it out loud.
Interesting. Well, when you're a kept woman, everybody knows.
Yeah. But she's got lots of fun lines in here. I think this is very clever lyric writing, which I always appreciate. Like,
"Oh, if people only knew how dull it was to live in sin."
that's another character developing. Oh, she's just so bored by this. It's just not that fun, even though we're having this scandalous lifestyle.
I was really impressed with the lyrics of the show. I think the lyrics are one of the strongest elements of romance overall.
Mm-hmm.
So Barry Harmon wrote the book and lyrics. And it's not hard to be good at both, but as good as the books are, comparing, these two one acts, the lyrics are never trite. They reveal character, they're interesting, and they fit with Keith Herman's music very well. I was really impressed with Barry Harmon's lyric writing.
Yeah, it does help that these characters in Act 1 are upper class people that would have a fancier way of talking, a much wider vocabulary, so you can really kind of flex some lyric writing muscle and still have it feel completely natural for the character. Because often that's what's holding you back from doing some outlandish rhymes and lyrics that you just don't want it to seem artificial.
That's true. Either the people are well educated or it's very heightened theatricality to the point of not really being realistic or naturalistic.
That too, yeah. And there is a reprise of this song in the scene after that's not on the cast album. It's pretty short, and they're at 78 minutes, so not a lot of extra time to play around with on the album. So I understand it's a cute little reprise with new lyrics from before, which is always good, better than just repeating what was already said.
Emil, you hear goodbye.
The next track is It's Not Too Late. And this is one of those that you mentioned that is much more of that kind of modern musical theater type of vibe, less of the operetta style. I understand that's probably, like you said, more where they live normally, but I've been up to this point really enjoying this operetta feeling. So it's kind of jarring a little bit for me at first, and so you kind of get into it, and then the orchestration helps to make it feel more in place, but it's definitely noticeable.
Right. So this song is the song that appears in both acts, but they're orchestrated differently. The first act feels like a classic pop rock power ballad almost that has two melodic hooks. Too late, right? Sticks in your ear. And it's not too late also sticks in your ear.
Yeah.
Why is it too late for falling in love? Isn't there some chance of finding romance with someone young and sweet? Someone I have yet to meet. There's a voice inside my head that keeps repeating, it's not too late.
The second act, they make sure that we realize that he's either really or aspirationally an electric bass player.
Yeah.
And so there's these electric bass licks in this song in the second act that don't appear in the first act. So I thought that was an interesting way to differentiate between the two of them, even though it's nice that the song fits in both acts, because both acts are people trying to find love but not being honest about themselves. And neither one of them ends with them like fully happy and in love either. but it's not too late. So maybe
Yeah, and
after
even
the
that has
show's
very
over.
different meanings from Act 1 to Act 2, because this is, it's not too late to find love. And we'll talk about the reprise more when we get there, I guess. But to your point of it's not too late, it is the exact same notes and rhythm as I Want It All from Baby, which was 5 years earlier. And it's kind of set up in a way that you could easily just sing that line. And so that's what I think every single time I listen to it. And those 4 notes are the biggest example we have of tying together the whole score. In addition to this being repeated in Act 2, several songs have included in the orchestrations a reference to this song, which is really nice to help make it more cohesive. I wish there were more of that, more of the motifs from Act 1 showing up in songs in Act 2 and vice versa, just to help make it even more so feel connected. But I do appreciate all the times that we got it in this one that they're not hitting you over the head with it. It's artfully done. And it's just, whether it's even conscious or not, helps you to not feel like it's so disjointed.
Right.
Lately I've been taking stock. I find I'm growing wary of the ticking of the clock. The years have passed and I've amassed my share of souvenirs. Yet each day the dawn appears.
I remember thinking at the time, well, I remembered the last song of the plot of Act 2, Romantic Notions, but I also remembered It's Not Too Late because of the melodic hooks, and because the first time it appears, I was like, oh, this composer has more than one way of writing, and I've never heard of this person. This is really interesting, and there's a lot of talent here. And again, like, it's not like they've got a ton of money to throw around, but they're willing to shoot their shot because they really believe in this material. It made me pay attention, I have to say.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to try. Don't ever give up hoping, and your dreams will never die. There's still a chance to find romance with someone young and sweet, someone I have yet to meet.
There's a lot of great musical hooks, lyrical hooks, things that just kind of stick in you and make you reflect longer after, which is not easy to do, honestly, when you realize how few Broadway shows survive to be well known in the future. And a lot of that has to do with how well you can keep people's attention with a single listen so that they want to keep coming back to it.
Right.
An example of that, the next track, Great News. I really love this opening. I think it is lively. It's a very hopeful feeling. It's very good at evoking the emotion that they're going for through the melody and the orchestration. And it's a really fun way to kind of get into, this is where we start to learn more about their dual deceptions.
And in this song, the da-da-da-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-ba, which I think was in the overture, is the hook for this song.
And I love it.
Yeah. And the speed, the ping pong match gets faster in this number. I mean, they sang the opener together. Okay, great. These are the people we care about. Then they each had their own individual scene and with servants and costumes and whatnot. But now the volleying is very fast.
Yeah.
And so that
the
shows...
lyrics are very fast.
Yeah.
Remember how I told you I was dying for a woman who would love me for myself alone and not because I'm rich? Well, I met someone.
Remember how I told you I was tired of the high life and I longed to meet a fellow who had yet to find his niche? Well, I met someone.
Isn't that a switch?
I met someone.
So that shows a lot of excitement, and it shows a lot of higher stakes, dramatically speaking, all revealed through the music.
Yeah, and it's also that playfulness of being enamored of somebody, and that kind of butterflies feeling is very well expressed in this with how rapidly they're singing. Like, those lyrics are definitely the biggest tongue twisters of the show to try to get those out. The Ultimate Patter song. And it is very effective at making you feel more drawn into their story together. Because this is when we finally actually see them in the plot, not just the opening number, but in the plot of the first act, interacting directly. And they're both dressed. He dressed down just to go out and go be among the common people. He wasn't necessarily intending to deceive somebody. And she, I don't know if she was intending to deceive somebody, but she had it in her mind that she wanted to find somebody who is not rich and handsome, maybe poor and handsome, to have an affair with, just so that she was doing something for herself and not for her financial interests.
Right. Not entirely distasteful reasons for them to be in this situation.
Though you don't get that on the album. You only get that if you're watching the video. Because on the album, it seems very kind of creepy the way that they're fetishizing poverty and that kind of thing. But that's not really how it plays out in the show itself.
Well, period farce is not known for political correctness.
Yeah.
It was quite a merry escapade.
You won't believe the game I played. I met the girl while wearing a disguise. A disguise. A disguise.
The reason we know a lot about wealthy people in former times is because they are the ones whose work was preserved in letter writing and furniture and costume museum pieces. And, novels, Jane Austen, whatever, are about people of means and people who have the time to carry on affairs rather than working 18 hours a day.
Yeah, very true.
So it just sort of is what it is.
Yeah. So as they meet here, it kind of feels like one track, but we go into the next track, which is Oh, What a Performance, which now we've moved from playful and hopeful kind of orchestrations to very grand, enabling the verbosity that they're going to be expressing and talking about how brilliantly they fooled the other into believing their story.
Right.
I gave a performance. I did myself proud. The way I had to improvise, I nearly laughed out loud. Oh, what a performance. I wish you had heard. I told the most outrageous lies. She swallowed every word.
And I do think it's funny that they both have lots of tells that they're from the upper class, but neither picks up on it because their mannerisms they're used to, like the word choice, the style of speaking, etc. So they each just think it's normal, and they think they're brilliant actors, even though anybody watching from the outside would probably be able to tell, yeah, you're not poor people.
Well, they probably never met any poor people.
Exactly, so they wouldn't know.
Right.
And it's fun.
Oh, what a performance. A grand divorce.
Perhaps I really shouldn't have,
But no time for remorse. Although I know it may be tempting fate.
And we get a lot of dramatic pseudo-modulation and true modulation throughout, which adds to that grandiosity, and just you feel their excitement at not just how excited they are to have a new love interest, but how they came about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're getting to know them better as who they really are, as well as understanding the sort of plot that we don't get to see, but which they talk about.
Mm-hmm. And then there's some time passage in here, but we get to I'll Always Remember the Song as the next track, which is super catchy. Very good choice for them to use as part of their Tony's performance.
Correct.
Monday evening, the band played a polka. A new lively polka with a military air. Monday evening, the band played a polka, and my new love and I, we were there.
This is a sort of a John Philip Sousa style number. It's a period number, but it's an oompa sort of thing, but it's not a waltz.
Yeah.
It's definitely in four, so it's a march.
But he even says with a military air. So it's definitely intentional to have that feeling.
Correct. But then the words are all about, that they were at a circus, right? Or
I'm not sure
band,
what kind
a
of
band
place
shell.
it is, or just a tavern, or who knows.
A park, yeah.
I guess it's never really mentioned what kind of place they're in, just someplace that they're playing a polka.
Could be anywhere.
And they say polka a lot.
Right. Even though musically it's not a polka, why not?
It has elements to evoke a polka, especially with the orchestration.
Right. It's Middle European, and it's got a tuba. So might as well be a polka.
Starting slow, off we go, and the squeeze box kept wheezing along. Turn then once again, and I'll always remember the song.
I do like the structure for the song. The first verses each is a day of the week, Monday and then Tuesday, and each night they play the same polka, and then they kind of have a bridge, which is Wednesday and Thursday combined, and then they have a dance break, and we come back with a slower verse that's Friday about how they've gotten to know it so well over the week, and everybody's harmonizing with it, and it lets them have a lot of fun. Because when you have our him and her couple, the background actors that will be more featured in Act 2, doing a lot of dancing throughout this song, and then we get the main two dancing a bit as well. And I also really appreciate something that a lot of people don't maybe think about as much as I tend to, but the way that they abridged it for the Tony's performance is very skillfully done, that it doesn't feel like you're truncating it, but it is absolutely mixing part of this verse with part of this verse so that it moves along quickly.
Right.
And whoever did that for them, I don't know if that was Michael Sterben or somebody else, should get a lot of credit because that's not an easy thing to do.
True.
Rum-dum-dum-tiddy-dum-tiddy-dum went the drum-tiddy-dum-tiddy-dum, and the squeeze box kept wheezing along.
Toot-toot-toot-toot-toot-toot, sang the flute-toot-toot-toot-toot, and I'll always remember the song.
getting to the end of it. They're happy. They're in love. So the next song is Happy, Happy, Happy. Don't love the title. And I don't love how many happies we get in the song, including at the end, we get 11 and a half happies in a row.
But who's counting?
And this is another of the more modern feeling songs.
Right. It's kind of just a throwaway, because doesn't it lead directly into Women of Vienna,
Yeah.
which has a little more substance to it.
Yeah, this is quicker, and it's giving, again, there really are a lot of parallels to the feel of, Bach and Harnick, that era of like She Loves Me. This is kind of like the song She Loves Me of I'm just so happy about it.
Right.
And I do love the gag at the end when he's singing the 11 and a half happies in a row. And the reason it's a half is because he trips over the couch and falls backwards,
Right.
which is a funny gag on stage.
Because otherwise he'll still be saying happy.
He probably
There's no
would
reason
be
to stop.
to this day.
Right?
There's one lyric.
I'm so carefree, people think me suicidal. I'm as daring as the man on the trapeze.
I'm like, that's not what I would think if I saw someone carefree. I get what they're saying, but I'm not sure why that's where your mind went.
Right. That is odd. But on the other hand, it's got to be your character is saying that, and there's some reason why your character is saying that, and use that as an actor.
He's being dramatic.
Right. It's because if lyrics were full of the typical stereotypical things, then everybody would know what all the lyrics are ahead of time.
And we already covered Late Night Comic on this podcast. So go check out that episode. It's not a good show, but it's a fun conversation.
Will do.
She's a cherub, she's a lamb, being loved just as I am. Makes me happy, 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 happy. And yet,
And you mentioned it goes directly into Women of Vienna. This is another one where they kind of feel like one track, but they are separated out here. So the beginning of the song is very strange. I don't know the music terminology well enough, but the background is in some kind of a minor mode, and he is not singing with terrible accuracy in the notes of that opening line. And so it's hard to tell exactly what the notes are supposed to be, because I don't think it would be nice if it was, right in the center of the pitch with this interesting accompaniment. But as is, it just feels a little bit muddied for the first couple lines, and then it gets better.
Oh dear.
she's not like other women of Vienna. Her sights aren't set on the sky. Eager to please, never hard to appease, she is quite satisfied. Eating dried bread and cheese.
Finish up, darling. Heaven knows when we can afford to dine like this again.
Well, with so many tracks to record, who knows
Yeah.
what they had time to do more than once.
Yeah, and throughout the song, he is just singing about how she's different than the others, and would she love him if he was poor, and that kind of thing. But I barely remember what he says in the song because her lines are so funny. Every now and then we get an interjection of her that is just the perfect comic timing, the perfect delivery.
Violets? For me? Darling, you shouldn't have. You have your rent to pay.
It's so funny.
Yeah, she's so good.
Ah,
So
it's
good.
amazing. And more of the fun double meaning wordplay that
It's clear to me the means I have means our affair is doomed.
I love that kind of thing that again often will not feel in character, but in this situation it works very well.
Right. She's a demi-monde, but she's educated.
They both know a lot more than they think they're letting on.
Right.
And now the next track is Yes, It's Love, which I think is very charming and beautiful. I'm always a sucker for an irregular time signature, but this is her kind of allowing herself to sink in.
Yes, it's love, no doubt about it. What else could make me feel this good? Yes, it's love, why should I deny it? I'd take a steady diet if I could.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of five going on, which again shows that we have a composer here, not somebody who is musical but untrained, right? Clearly, Keith Herman is, a trained musician, and I always appreciate that. I mean, I love all musicals. I even enjoyed Dance of the Vampires. I mean, I'm at a Broadway musical. What's not to love? So not to denigrate anybody, but when a composer is a trained musician and knows how to wield the tools that he has, it always makes me feel good.
Absolutely. And I always do really enjoy 5/4 time, but this is more 5/6, where we're not adding a beat to a measure of 4. We're dropping a beat from a measure of 6. And
That's
so
right.
it gives that kind of constant falling forward feeling,
Yes.
which makes sense dramatically in the song because she's falling in love. And again, it's not just can you musically, do you have the chops to do that, but can you use it effectively in storytelling? And I think it does very much that in this song especially.
Good point.
And then the fun little bits here and there of the
No, I haven't started drinking liquor to excess. But am I drunk? Oh, yes.
this fun little, again, she's writing a letter to, what's her friend's name? Helene.
Helene, yes.
Yes. Helene Baez in Paris. And I think we're getting good progression of the story that we've moved from uncertainty about their future to, in this point, the last verse is acknowledging that, yes, I'm going to have to give him the shove, but until then, it's love. So she's starting to have that creeping in from the back of her mind of this can't go on indefinitely, but she's still in the throes of it and wants to enjoy it as much as she can. And
Right.
we keep getting more along that road as we go through the rest of the act. And I think it's very well plotted out.
And I appreciate very much the use of the word shove there, because love is a notoriously hard word to rhyme. You've got dove and above, and that's
Or
kind
of, which is typically pretty awkward to try to get that to work syllabic
Right.
stress-wise.
And it's shove without saying push comes to shove, thank God. No offense to Twyla Tharp, but I was like, oh, wordplay. Fantastic. Good job.
Yeah.
It's love.
So after this, we have a rustic country inn. They are now going on a romantic getaway.
Yes.
And they have been in this country inn for a week, and they're both pretending to love it, but all we're hearing from them are their letters to their friends saying how much they hate it there. It's a funny song, but they're clever lyrics that I really enjoy, but watching the video, they don't get any laughs. So they're kind of these awkward pauses where the laugh should go, but it's not that kind of a funny. So that's like a little, that's awkward.
Well, it's almost like, why are these characters shooting themselves in the foot going there? I know, because they can never go to their actual houses. Their entire relationship is built on not going home with each other.
Yeah.
Because then they would find out who they really were. So they have to go to other places, and they've ended up, out in the country somewhere where it's obvious that neither one of them knows the first thing about being in the country.
Yeah.
This is doomed to fail.
It didn't hit me the first couple times I listened to it, but at the beginning, we're getting several instances of a cuckoo clock kind of sound in the orchestrations, and it's orchestrated very much like a cuckoo clock.
Right.
Alfred von Wilmers to Theodore Dealing in Naples. Dear Theodore, we are staying at a rustic country inn. I'm the happiest that I have ever been. Though our lodgings are remote, over 30 leagues from town, I have hardly even noticed their decrepit and run down.
And then watching the video, he comes out and he's got that Tyrolean hat that looks like somebody that's going to come out of a cuckoo clock. But it's also kind of, they're driving each other crazy. Or not necessarily even each other, but the circumstances are driving them crazy. So they're kind of going cuckoo. I don't know if that's what they meant, but as I've been thinking about it, that's kind of crossed my mind.
Yeah, you may be right. It's subliminal, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the lyrics in this one that, for whatever reason, does stand out to me and make me laugh is,
It's the perfect spot to swim if it only had a lake. People come here for the simple life or simply by mistake.
again, just her delivery is so spot on that it's this very dry humor that, while a lot of them don't get laughs, that one, I think, did in the video.
Very good.
Who doesn't love a good thunder sound cue as well?
It's very loud.
It's very loud. And it's very well set up. It's the kind of thing where it's not entirely unpredictable. You can kind of see where the line is going, but it's done so well that you don't mind it, if that makes sense.
Still we're feeling in the pink, so I really can't complain. But I can't begin to think what we would do if it should rain. Let's pad.
So it's the kind of thing that can be easily very cringy or just makes you decrease your estimation of the lyricist's talent, but it's somehow executed in a way that works very well.
Right.
So because of the rain and they're both making up excuses, they decide to pack and go home early. So that's how the song ends, that they're very excited and they feel better than they have all week to finally be leaving this place. But now she ends up having some introspection. So we have The Night It Had to End, which is a beautiful song, melodically gorgeous.
Yeah.
Storytelling wise, it's continuing to progress that where we're at the breaking point now that she can't go on lying to him anymore. But I always forget about this song as I'm thinking about the album. It just doesn't stand out to me.
The title phrase sticks out. And it's clearly like, here's Alison Fraser doing what, one of the things she does best, which is breaking our hearts.
Remind me if starts taking flight of the night. It had to end.
Maybe I'm reading more into that than there really is, but it feels like we've got Allison, we need to give her like a whole bunch of songs. It's very touching, but you're right. It should be better known, but maybe there's a reason it's not.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what that reason is, but like I said, storytelling-wise, it is perfectly situated where it needs to be. Just other than the title line, nothing of it comes back to my memory when I'm trying to think of how it goes.
Right.
Don't allow the stars to blind me, please remind me. Love can break your heart.
And to your point of she's going to sing and act the hell out of it and he's just going to be charming, I didn't mention earlier, what is his accent in this? Because hers is completely formed and clear, and his is like sometimes British, sometimes mid-Atlantic, sometimes just Midwest. He can't quite make up his mind. It's just moving all around.
Right.
Because he's charming. It doesn't have to be good.
Yeah. He does sound a little bit American, and yet his words are clear.
That is true.
And he has a bright, clear voice. But again, it's hard to hold a candle to Alison Fraser. And even if, like I said, she sounded a little bit Eliza Doolittle, a little bit Leslie Caron in her accent, but she's so carefree until she breaks our hearts. So
Yeah.
I didn't mind at all.
No, I have no issues with her Act 1 performance at all. So now we've come to the end of Act 1 with the finale of the little comedy reprise. So they both decide that they can't do this anymore. They have to be honest. So they independently decide to dress in their normal clothes and go to their designated meeting spot. And then they
Right.
show up and they see each other, and her Alfred is so low. It's so funny. I don't know why.
Yeah. And this is the point where you think, well, they're going to fall laughing into each other's arms and be happy ever after, or be sad that the person they thought they loved doesn't exist and they'll go their separate ways. But instead, it's a third choice. They're like, well, I don't trust you anymore. Well, I can't trust you either.
I never did trust her.
Now the fears and doubts commence.
Can love be real with such pretense?
The ruse confessed.
The joke enjoyed,
The truth revealed.
the dream destroyed.
But then they don't forgive each other for having the same level of distrust, but they're also still attracted to each other.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a little ambiguous, I guess.
It is very ambiguous at the end. It's kind of like so he has the line,
A year from now, I'll cast her off.
A year from now, I'll be his wife.
My wife?
so clearly they're also not agreeing on what the future is going to be.
Right.
But those two should rhyme based on the structure of the song. And it's very jarring to me that off rhymes with nothing. Because then after she says life, the next line, they rhyme with life. But we've been following this very classical type of rhyming pattern for the whole act. And to break it at the very end, it doesn't feel like we're intentionally moving into a modern space. It just feels like I'm done rhyming. That's fine. Just a throwaway.
I mean, if this is the only flaw in the lyrics of Act 1, that's great, but it's too bad it's at the very end.
Yeah. And I'd also understand if she was heading for a rhyme and then surprises us with a word that doesn't rhyme. Because that's a fun gag to use where your brain fills in and jumps ahead and then you get kind of...
Right. But this is too close.
But it's not heading towards something else, which I'll have another issue with that in the second act with a similar kind of thing, but I just don't get it. One thing that does strike me, though, listening to this track is near the beginning-ish, there's an arpeggiated chord that sounds very much to me like the one at the start of Moments in the Woods, from Into the Woods.
Pepe?
Alfred. What was that?
It's very similar notes, not quite the same, but it's obviously not a copy. They both premiered in New York the same month, November of '87, one on Broadway, one off Broadway. So they couldn't have known. It's just kind of funny that happened.
And Michael Starman didn't do Into the Woods, did he?
No, that was Jonathan Tunick.
I don't know. suspicious.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Even though, I'm writing a book, which I've been writing for decades now. But I went back and looked at what I had said about romance, and I embedded it in my Sondheim section as saying one of the first musicals that seems influenced by the work of Stephen Sondheim as a whole was Romance.
Okay.
So, because obviously there's the Sunday in the Park thematic or structural connection, which is really, I attribute more to James Lapine than Sondheim. But the first act could be a little light music and the second act could be company.
Mm-hmm.
And there really was no other viable American game in town except for Sondheim's works.
Yeah.
Because of the economic problems. And I was just coming out of graduate school in 1985. And so maybe that's coloring my opinion, but it does seem like Sondheim's overall body of work was now a force to be reckoned with. And people younger than him were starting to be influenced by that. And I think that the show doesn't relate to other shows as well as it relates to Sondheim shows.
I definitely did have the thought of a little night music in Act 1, but I hadn't thought about company in Act 2. But you're right, that's in a lot of ways very similar vibes and themes kind of being explored. So that's
right.
Very
and also in a
about.
Sort of in a non-naturalistic, non-linear way, even though they have that unity of time, but that's only the two main characters. The other two characters are completely breaking the fourth wall. So it can feel like vignettes the way the company does.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's a fun way to end Act 1. Talking about Sondheim, I'm always down for that.
I can always do that.
Yeah.
The little comedy
There's a comedy.
So now we get intermission and we come back.
Right.
And so this now is, we finally get to hear from Robert Hoschauer and Deborah Graham in Summer Share, which is also the name of the Act 2 show. And it's
Right.
super fun, high energy, aggressively 80s, but very engaging musically.
Let's get out of the city. We all could use a breath of air. How would you feel if we could swing us a deal for a summer share? A summer share. A summer share.
Yeah, it's got that another 100 people or Here Comes Company, In Comes Company vibe. It propels you forward, propels you into the story. We're finally able to hear 4 voices singing instead of just 2, like 4 notes. Wow. Vocal harmonies.
And they're nice ones.
And yeah, and
Four of them sound really good together.
they really do, actually. They're well balanced and the writing is good.
In a summer share. A summer share. A summer share.
Though they never explain, like, what is a summer share? Like, unless you live in New York,
Yeah, that is true.
you don't know what that means. Like, who's actually paying, or is it expensive, or does that mean that they have a week? Is it 1 week, or like, what is it exactly?
Yeah, 3 months, a weekend, a week.
It's
Very unclear.
right, because they just keep repeating summer share, because it's the hook. But it's
Yeah,
it's successful.
I don't love how many times they repeat the song title at the end. 5.5. Yes, I counted again. This is not late night comic where they would just repeat the song name at the end of every song multiple times, and it drives me crazy.
Here comes summer share. A summer share. A summer share. A summer share. A summer share.
But it does sound nice. It's a really fun song.
Yes, it is. It's a good opener, and it has to be an establishing song because we're in a new place. But it also has to be an Act 2 opener, which historically is like if you're coming back from the bathroom, you haven't missed anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like, okay, well, there's a set change, and there's 2 other people, but the 2 other people are dressed like they're playing tennis.
Well, this first song is just out of time and space just to establish us because we're kind of running
Right.
around. So it doesn't have to make sense
Running around is yes.
because they are moving
yeah.
around that stage aggressively.
This was a problem in listening to the recording, that the 2 guys sound similar, and we have 2 couples. Well, we had 2 couples before, but they're paired differently, which I think you only get from reading the liner notes or from the dialogue that's not on the recording.
You could
it's harder
maybe
to get
piece it together from some of the dialogue in a couple of the next tracks. But yeah, it's definitely much harder.
Then I kept forgetting. I still don't remember their names.
So
But like
I have it
who's
written down because I knew I
singing?
wouldn't remember. So Scott Bakula is now Sam, and he is married to Deborah Graham's Barb. And
Right.
Allison Fraser is now Monica, married to Robert Hochschauer's Lenny. So our two leads are both married to the others, not to each other.
Except it's 2 a.m. and those other people are ostensibly in bed asleep in separate bedrooms. And the best friends fall to discussing what is love and how's your marriage and aren't we great friends,
Yeah. it's
which
an
is finally
interesting-
revealed as that's all they ever talk about.
Yeah. So after the Summer Share Big Brassy number, the next song is a lot quieter. Think of the odds. So this is largely the two spouses being our narrators to talk about what are the odds that these two are going to fall in love and get romantically involved. But the tone of the song is just constantly shifting, and I'm not sure that it's intentional. Are they playing themselves? Are they disinterested observers who are just narrating for us and they happen to be the actors who played the spouses?
Right.
Are they optimistic that their spouses will come through and not cheat? Or are they assuming the worst and that things are going to go that way? It'd be more intentional if there's a clear progression throughout the song, or even this to this and back. But it's just kind of we're amorphously shifting around with the different lines,
Yeah.
and it makes it harder to get a real feel for the song.
Yeah.
Think of the odds, a man and a woman. Listen in closely and fill in the gaps.
Think of the odds. What do you venture? Both harbor feelings they keep under wraps.
Musically, I like this song a lot. It's catchy, but they keep breaking it up with dialogue. But then I also kept thinking, well, are they just giving away whatever suspense they've got that like, okay, well, I guess there is going to be an affair because it's a second number.
Yeah.
They've already brought it up. And you're right. Like, how do the spouses feel about it? Or are they dispassionate, arm's length narrators? Because I don't get the feeling that they're confident that their marriages are good.
Yeah.
They just raise a bunch of questions and you're not sure why they're raising the questions.
Yeah, the only definitive statements we get are in dialogue that's either, I think, during Summer Share or right after, that's not on the album, where they're talking about, yeah, I've got a promotion and I wish I had more time for my husband, but it's been crazy. Or, yeah, things will settle down in a few years when I make partner. They're kind of giving those types of declarative statements instead of now we're into this, well, I don't know, will they, won't they? And it's like, I don't know, you're in the show, you tell me, what's going to happen?
I am the one that he married, not her.
100 to 1, not a thing will occur.
Bruised again to thin, all the boundaries will hold.
Why go for trinkets instead of pure gold?
The whole second act feels a little bit like tell instead of show, at least when the music is going on or when the secondary characters are there, because we never see them in the marriages they're talking about. They're never being happy together. They're never being not happy together. They
Yeah.
never really relate to each other as couples other than standing next to each other while they're all singing.
Yeah, I think in the book scene between Summer Share and this is when they arrive at the Summer Share. So they're all in the room together before the spouses go to bed. But that's so brief, and
Yeah,
we're not
it
getting
is
anything
very-
meaningful from that of how they interact with each other in the real world on a daily basis. And none of that's on the album at all. So if you're
Right.
listening, you really aren't getting that. But just the dialogue, like the NATO personality, feels really forced to me.
And I suppose your wife is convinced I'm ready to pounce on you the moment her back is turned.
Well, she used to be. I mean, you come on pretty strong, but over the years, he's come to realize you're strictly a NATO personality.
NATO?
No action, talk only.
Like it's kind of a dad joke of a line almost.
Yeah, I'm like, have I ever heard that before? No, I haven't.
Yeah,
I've
I
never
think
heard
they
it
just
before.
made it up for this and then made it sound like a thing.
I do like the end of this song, which is,
God, let the odds prove wrong. End of song.
Yeah, I don't love that, but
it's a little bit too in your face,
without
like
a
too
purpose for
knowing.
it. Yeah.
But then it also is like, well, thank God there's not going to be another section of dialogue while the orchestra keeps playing.
Oh, that's true. So you're right. It does make sense to declare the
5
end of the
verses,
song.
6 verses. How many times
Yeah.
are they going to go back in?
No way of knowing unless they tell you.
There you go.
But this is the other one where the lyric really bugs me. So it's near the end of the song.
I do admit I've been a bit preoccupied of late.
suspected that the two of them were...
Wait!
But it's not clear what he was going to say. Because this is one of those, it should be, you know what he's going to say, but we don't actually get it. Because he's rhyming with wait, which is what, or that's what we're heading toward, is the wait rhyme. And if it was like half suspected that the two of them would, maybe it was like date or something. But I can't think of any term related to an affair that would rhyme with wait that he could have been going for. So it's just, for that kind of a moment to land for me, we have to see where the character singing is going. And then it's interesting that they get interrupted. Not, oh, they were never going to finish the song. They didn't know what they were going to say.
Right. It could be that he was like, Sondheim does this all the time. We can just break a line up between two characters.
And not realizing why Sondheim does that or how he does it.
Right. Or in the teaching that I do here in Chicago at Second City, we're always talking about setup and payoff.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of rhyme, not only does the rhyme have to be funny, it has to be a better rhyme than the setup. Because you do it backwards, then you like it, it always falls flat. So because the rhyme is already anticipated is a different situation than if you don't know what the rhyme should be, that you just know it should be a word at all.
Absolutely.
And so there's a technical way to structure lyrics that will emphasize or de-emphasize the rhyme, emphasize or de-emphasize the joke, but you really have to zero in on what you're trying to accomplish and lay it out so that it does that. And maybe they just didn't fully think it through.
You're being nicer than I am. And then we go into the next track of It's Not Too Late reprise. So now we start off with a cardinal sin of
I'm as faithful as they come, but in my dreams I live each moment to the maximum.
And the syllabic stress is on mum. And it's the first line. Come on. I hate that. I literally wince every time I hear it.
Well, that's
such great lyrics in the first half, and then we're going to pull a rookie mistake like that?
Yeah. Again, that's maybe if it had been the second of the rhyming pair, they would have landed better.
Other than that, though, this is a very fun song. Like you'd said before, this is orchestrated much more to be 80s pop sound with the bass guitar in there and those kinds of things. So it's musically very fun, but it's weird to sing a song about how you're hopeful that you might still be able to have an affair one day. You haven't ruled out that possibility. That's essentially the theme of this song. Is that this time, that's what it's not too late for. It's not too late to cheat.
Right, with
Why are
the
we singing about
person, and that's the other person singing with you is a person you might cheat with.
Yeah.
There's a voice inside my head that keeps repeating, it's not too late.
But they're both acting like it could be anybody, even though we know that they both know that they're talking about each other. We all know, but they're pretending it's more than that.
I guess that it seems weird enough that I was willing to chalk it up for like, well, it could happen. I mean, people could be this way.
Yeah.
It's certainly not the way I would assume it goes, but I don't know these people. Maybe this is how they are.
Yeah, true. And this is the second part of the Tony's performance to showcase the modern half. So it is musically a very fun song. It's just, if you actually stop and think about the lyrics, you're like, wait, what are we doing? That's a little odd.
And I was worried about her hair on the Tonys. Like, was that on purpose? Or is it just because they jerked the wig off? Or like, what happened?
That's just the style. Who knows? She's going for something different.
That's a blowout.
Yeah, we'll just call it that. No one will know. How are they going to know?
Right.
Never say too late for chasing a dream. Never say no chance.
Who knows when romance might sweep you off your feet?
Hope is never obsolete.
And we continue this theme in the next track of Plans A and B, which is fairly quick. So this was skipped in the video, this and the next track, which I think is interesting, at least in what's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this was at some point cut from the show.
These songs are the two songs that are my least favorites.
Yeah, like I wouldn't mind if they were actually cut.
Right. The music is not memorable.
Some of the worst lyrics.
The best thing about them is that they're brief. But the first time I was listening to this album recently, I think I fell asleep at this point. Because I had to listen to it again. And I was like, no wonder I fell asleep. I didn't miss anything.
Nope. Because this is Sam asking Monica, what would you do if you found out that Lenny cheated on you? And she's like, Plan A. Like she has this all thought out.
Plan A. If ever I discover he's unfaithful,
I never wanted you to know.
I'm not about to blubber, we bore
The whole thing happened months ago, I have forgot.
Right on the spot, I'll turn around and also be unfaithful.
These things happen.
With the closest available man.
You did what? But when in
Not a graceful lyric. And like, who talks like that?
Right.
And then her plan B is to sex him to death. I'm not entirely sure. Like, it's to become a nympho, and I'm like, how is that a reaction to his cheating? I don't really get it. It's kind of strange, but
Well, like if it's in anger,
maybe.
rage fucking, that's great.
But I think the idea is that she'll be so sexual that he won't be able to get it up for anybody else. And I'm like, that's a weird reward for his cheating. Okay.
Right. He'll just continue to cheat if that's how you react.
Yeah.
That plan isn't going to work.
And once again, these two tracks basically could be one track because they're both shorter and they go right into each other. Let's not talk about it is then her asking him, well, what would Barb do in my place? And he says, I often ask her. And I'm like, really? You're often asking your wife what she would do if you cheated on her? Why is that something that you're bringing up all the time? Maybe once, but why are you hounding her about it?
Maybe once.
Because she doesn't have a good answer, so apparently he just keeps asking, thinking that's going to make it better.
Like, by the way, do you have a better answer to that question about me cheating?
Because, I'm starting to think about it. Better get a good answer ready. Like, what is he hoping for?
Why must we talk about it?
She just can't see it happening to us.
It's nothing loving couples need discuss.
What point is there in raising up a fuss over nothing? But surely.
And yet the dialogue in the second act is, very much contemporary dramatic dialogue writing. It doesn't feel like there should be songs here. I'm like, I think we've been a long time without a song. Like, they're just doing a play now.
Yeah, it really does feel like that.
But in a good way, like, okay, the first act was the funny act, and now we're in the serious act. So something cool and, dramatic is going to happen, which it almost does.
Almost.
I think.
I don't understand in the song. They're acting like it's unreasonable of Barb not to have an answer for how she would react if he cheated on her. And like, how could you not know what you would feel and what you would do? Like, what do you mean? It's always circumstantial. It's like, were you suspecting it? Were you blindsided? That's going to change how much you're sad versus angry versus
And
just
if it's
withdrawn.
never happened, how do you know how you're going to react?
So why do they think that she should have this brilliant answer of how she would react? It's like, are these sociopaths? They just don't understand humans?
They're probably trying anything except actually cheating.
Yeah, I guess. Get that thrill and back into the relationship.
Without actually doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But they sure do talk about it a lot.
Yeah. But like I said, these songs, not interesting.
Yeah, definitely skips for me. And then So Glad I Married Her is next. And this is them both talking about how lucky they have it and how great their spouses really are. And I'm like, are you trying to convince each other or yourselves? Because this is kind of weird considering how you were just talking about your spouses to now pivot quite a lot. Do you believe what you're saying, or are you just saying because you think you should?
She comes in to talk while I shave, and I'm so glad I married her.
He laughs when the kids misbehave, and I'm so glad I married him.
I appreciated that dichotomy. I think they're being honest. They're not saying that they hate their spouse.
Yeah. I guess it's probably the dissonance of, I know this is true. I know I'm so lucky. So why am I not feeling satisfied? Maybe hoping by talking about it that way, they can rekindle the feeling to go along with the intellectual component of it.
Right. And, the parallelism of this song makes us see that perhaps Sam and Monica really should leave their spouses and get together because they're going through a similar midlife crisis with somebody that they've known for years. People have divorced and married somebody else for less, far less than that.
That's very true. So when he's talking about all the things with his wife and something otherwise, and then he rhymes it with, she's a gem, wife, and mother-wise. And I'm like, another dad joke kind of a lyric. Like, that's a stretch. It's not quite bad, but it's like, I think we could have done better.
You have to be like, wait, what did he say? Because those words don't go together.
Yeah.
How many commas are in that sentence?
How many commas? How many hyphens? How many
Exactly.
quotation marks?
Did you hear parenthesis?
And I do have to shout out,
It's the little things that really
Get her.
almost the name of the podcast. Not quite, but definitely catches my ear with how much I'm seeing and saying the name of the podcast.
Right.
The orchestration throughout the song is interesting. It kind of goes into like a tango vibe almost. And so there's like bongos and very interesting, different music and different orchestrations than the rest of the show. And I guess I understand what they're trying to do, but it just feels too random for me.
She's had too much scotch.
She
He's eyeing his crotch.
They both had best watch out. Watch out. Watch out.
And the other people, are they there? Are they dancing?
They're dancing. They have one. She has a rose, and he has something that he's using like as maracas, but that aren't. But yeah, I do appreciate that they're in white. Like the two that aren't physically in the room are just all in white. Again, like you said, tennis outfits for some reason because they're in the Hamptons, I guess. But so
but to be ghostly, ghostly specters. But to your point about the tango, it's like they decided to be a tango, and then they're like, oh, then this way the people can have tango-ish props because it grew out of the music.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why the lead characters would be envisioning their marriages as tango-related marriages.
Right. That's the whole point. If they were, they'd be in a much better place.
Well, exactly. That's a very good point. Tango is sex.
Yeah.
I mean, all dancing is, but especially a tango is.
Right. And it's interesting that we not only have the two leads dancing together, but their spouses are dancing together. So it's kind of just the music is overcoming all of us and no one's immune type of a thing, I guess.
Right.
But at least the push and pull of emotions from the spouses as for their parts singing in the song does feel more successful than in What Are the Odds earlier. Or think of the odds. Because this at least you can see them going back and forth, not just wandering, which I appreciate.
But God willing, we will endure, 'cause I'm so glad I married her. So glad we're husband and wife.
This is also the only moment of Act 2 that reminded me of A Little Night Music because the people are with the wrong partners, which is the whole point of A Little Night Music, that everybody needs to recouple.
Yeah.
And when you're like actually physically doing it with all four of them, then you really get that in your face. But at the same time, the characters are very unequal. In A Little Night Music, everybody is pretty much equal in costume detailing and the amount of stage time they have. So it could go either way. And in this, we're like, well, they're clearly
two are in color, two are in black and white.
I don't know enough about the people dressed in white to care about them. I only care about the two that are trying to not cheat.
And even that, my interest is waning.
Which gets us, to the twist in the ending, right?
Yeah.
Gotta love a musical with a twist.
Yes. This one will give you two.
Yes.
My life. Part of my life.
The next track is Small Craft Warnings, which is different. They're hearing a weather report on the radio about stormy seas and things like that. So the two spouses sing about this strange metaphor of danger and going out in your boat. And it kind of works for me, but feels muddled and confusing. Like, why is this here? It's definitely another skip for me.
Oh, no, I like it. The title, Small Craft Warning, like that's a hooky melody with some cool chords. And I'm always upset that the song isn't longer because I feel like I like this music and this is not the typical music. Why isn't there more to it? But also, you're stating a metaphor when there's been virtually no other metaphors stated, so you don't want to run it into the ground.
Yeah.
Small craft warnings, pilots please note. Strong undercurrent may be a deterrent to keeping your boat afloat.
Part of it also that just feels strange to me is it definitely gives me more of a 70s vibe. Like it feels like the Mamas and the Papas or the Carpenters singing. Like it just feels outdated for the time even. And I don't know if that was intentional to have it feel a little bit more old-fashioned. I'm not sure how that would play into the metaphor of it, but...
Well, I was thinking about this overall in terms of the contemporary musical theater, pop, rock vibes that I'm saying is his true compositional voice. The characters are not in their 20s, right? They're in their 30s. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the writers, they were not new to New York and they were not new to the industry. So the fact that the 80s had this whole, what you think of as like the new wave 80s was younger people. It was not these people.
Yeah.
So they can be yacht rock, wealthy people.
But only for this one song.
Right. So it didn't strike me as wrong for the characters. It struck me as like, I wish there was more of this, or
Then it would make more sense, yeah.
yeah, then it would make more sense.
Oh, well.
Be as cautious as can be if you plan to put out to sea. Small craft warnings are in effect.
Next up is How Did I End Up Here? So, for I forget what reason, Sam is out of the room. So Monica is reflecting on how she came to be considering an affair with her best friend. And this kind of makes more sense if you think about it as, is this actually taking place over 1 hour, or is this an amalgamation of several nights that have just repeated over and over, and this has now had time to develop over the summer? Because if you take it literally that this is a 1 hour event, she went from 0 to 60 real fast of, I would never consider it, and why am I on the verge of cheating on my husband? Like, I don't like how sudden it is.
It is structured so that he is pressuring her, and then she finally relents. Because he's the one like, he's just not good in bed anymore. And you're upset all the time. And, and she's like, oh, right. I guess I am. Like, let's go have an affair. So
it's like she wants to keep flirting with these things unsaid and under the covers. And he's like, well, if you're thinking it, let's just talk about it and act on it.
Right.
And she's kind of more like, I don't know. I kind of like it more when we're just hinting at it and not overtly saying what we're thinking. So this is kind of, I think, maybe the first time that she's admitting it to herself that those things are there. Whereas before she's maybe explained them away a bit more.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Can't sit still, can't think straight, can't recall which meals I ate. Damn you, am I losing weight? How did I end up here? My nerves are all a jangle, emotions in a tangle. I'm underneath a cloud and overwrought.
And I do think that Allison sounds incredible, and that this is like, yay, we needed a solo from her after all this, boozing it up and whispering at 2 a.m. Like, she finally lets loose in the second act.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the orchestra lets loose more. Like, this is, I think, in general, the mixing on this album is very, very good. In this track, though, it's sometimes hard to understand her because the balance is not quite right, and she's getting overpowered a little bit. And I wish it was more like the rest of the album where it's so perfect, because it's like, I can make out these words if I'm concentrating and thinking about it, but if I'm just casually listening, I'm not catching what she's saying.
Yeah, it is a full orchestration. And you're right. Overall, the album sounds really good. And I'd listened to it through headphones as well as through speakers. And it does sound good. There's a couple of lines of dialogue in the second act that are too soft that I had to turn my volume up. But, 90% of it is mixed and balanced really well.
Yeah. I think that's why it stood out that this one wasn't as crisp, because everything else is so good for the most part.
Agreed.
So wherever Sam was, he now comes back and we get words he doesn't say. And this is very interesting to me. The harmonic structures in this song are very 80s pop, but I think it's so effective at building the tension that it's trying to do as he is singing this to her. It's just kind of captivating, even if I can't fully explain why.
Well, I think he's supposed to be captivating. This is what I was alluding to. I got ahead of myself. Like, this is where he's like, your marriage is really bad. But he's very convincing at it, but not in a creepy way. But like, he knows these people really well, and this is his friend. And I believed him that it's not self-serving for him to say these things. That he's really concerned that his best friend is in a loveless marriage. So I do think it's an effective musical theater song, and is a strong point for the character.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that he admires you. He doesn't praise you very much. He doesn't say that he desires you, or that he hungers for your touch.
Out of context on this album, it kind of feels like a seduction. Like, that's the intention behind it. But with the dialogue leading up to it in the video, it's actually, like you said, it's not as self-serving. It is, he's trying to empathize with her wanting validation. That's a lot of, when you're in a marriage for a long time, those types of exchanges, encouraging remarks, those types of things often will diminish over time. And he's saying, I know this from my own experience, that I recognize that I've not been as good at doing this with my wife. So I know for a fact that your husband's not doing it with you either, because that's just how things go. And I understand why you would want to be validated like any human does. And I think over the course of the song, he's reflecting and realizing more so how much he has neglected his own wife in that.
You have seen the gap between you grow. It gets wider every day, and you wonder what's behind all the words he doesn't say.
And I think for him, she's also been too busy for him, so I think he's kind of given himself a pass in the past, and now he's realizing, well, maybe I should have done better too. So he's kind of trying to comfort her, but also then like realizing that he's less happy than he maybe thought he was. Like maybe for him it was more for the excitement of cheating, and now he's like, maybe I'm tempted to cheat because I'm just not satisfied anymore.
Right. There are layers in this song, and one of them is that he's realizing that he's guilty of these things in his own marriage, and one is that, yeah, he probably does want to sleep with his friend, but I still think that he is genuinely concerned for her. And if he's the solution to the problem, that doesn't change the fact that there is a problem.
That's very true.
So that's why I think it's a good theater song, because there are different choices the actor can make.
Yeah, and it's really not until I think at the end is the only time that he says,
all the words he doesn't say are the words I'd say to you.
So that we kind of close that in of maybe that was the implication of your husband's not saying these things, and then finally he admits, I will say them to you because you need to hear them from somebody.
Right.
So yeah, to what extent he is consciously doing this versus subconsciously is indeed a matter of how you want to play it and how you want to approach the song, which is always good for a musical theater song to give the actors some choices.
Right.
And then next up is My Love for You. This is the kind of strange throwback number that you mentioned before. So they're thinking about, like, what do I have to look forward to if I stay in my marriage? Golden anniversaries, silver anniversaries, and then the other two come out in the back in old people get up and do this song. It's a little kind of vaudeville, soft shoe almost type of number.
And it does feel like an 11 o'clock number in the sense of it's sort of dropped in from somewhere else. And where the plot grinds to a halt for a second, and let's do something to wake people up so they don't miss.
Yeah, let's break that heavy mood up a little bit with some levity.
Well, right. It certainly does that because the dialogue is very heavy at this point and the stakes are pretty high, and it's well established that nothing is going to happen to break this I mean, she either has to say yes or she says no. Nobody's going to come in and save her from making the decision. It has to be made. Except we can wait off for 4 minutes and make these two poor people have a costume change that they wouldn't have otherwise had to have. But they got to sing another number, and it's a different musical style that we've not heard, which is also going to come up again in the last track.
Yeah.
But it's a nice moment, which, again, if you're just listening to the album, you're like, why are they singing this way? What's going on?
I feel as young as spring. My mood is on an upswing. My heart is beating
Like it was brand new.
I feel so hale and hearty. I'm ready, girl, let's party!
Thanks to my love for.
And at least on my album, and I'm curious since you have the physical CD, the audio quality on this sounds a little bit tinny. Like it made me think that, are they listening to a song on the radio? Because it didn't sound like the rest of the tracks on the album.
That's true. I think they must have recorded it or mastered it in some sort of way to sound like it was coming through a radio, just a little bit. Because it does sound thin and sort of like a bad Zoom call when there's a little, when there's some electronic distortion, which I don't know if that's electronic, but that's what I call it. And I think it was on purpose.
Yeah, I think it feels like an interesting choice, though, because we're not talking about a throwback song. We're talking about a song in their future. So why are they listening to it on the radio now?
Well, that's a good point. But isn't that sort of the dichotomy? As you grow older, you become your parents and then you become your grandparents?
Yeah,
so
maybe they're going for that more.
I think they're going for, like, in the future, they're going to be like the old people that we all used to know who all listen to the radios.
Yeah, I like that approach. That makes it make more sense.
At least in a subconscious way.
Yeah, because definitely, like we talked about before, with how great most of the album sounds, it's not just an accident that this has a different sound to it.
Right.
So I'm sure they had their reasons, whatever they were. And
It's Thomas C. Shepard.
Yeah. And I love that these lyrics are definitely more intentionally dad jokey kind of like old people humor. Like I've had a triple bypass, and like the things that they're referencing are less clever and more just kind of like, aw. Like if you saw an old retirement homes production of something, you're like, oh, good for them. Maybe patronizing, but that feels like it's kind of what they're going for with the lyrics in the song.
Right. It's a little bit of the old man and the old woman from Laugh-In that Artie Johnson and Ruth Buzzy would play. That's a deep cut. But like when young people dress up to be old people, obviously so, they don't act like authentic old people. They act like their idea of old people.
Right.
And, it's supposed to be comic relief and it's supposed to be adorable because we're also worried about our lead characters. And that adds to the 11 o'clock quality that even though it's not streamers and, 10 minutes long, it's a breather that also involves dancing. So why not?
Yeah, because then after this, we're right back in it with moonlight passing through a window, which this is, I think, more when he actually is trying to seduce her. And
yes.
So I don't know what you think, but to me, the song structurally and harmonically feels very modern, like us modern. And it's just the orchestrations that keep it grounded in the 80s. It feels very ahead of its time for 88.
I was thinking something rare, something precious we could share, something done with great respect, which we'd always recollect.
Yes, interesting. I mean, it certainly seems unorthodox, and it's beautiful, but like structurally, it's a little bit, a reverie or rhapsody, sort of formless. At least matches the fact that it's now 3 a.m. and they're both very drunk. But yeah, it's different.
And the lyrics are whatever, because I don't really remember a lot of them, but the music stands out to me more.
Yeah,
which
agreed.
It's nice to have, like, this is a good spot to have something that surprises and feels different. Because otherwise we're getting just into heavy after heavy with one little light number to break things up. So I do appreciate that.
Then moonlight passing through a window, that was all I meant, one singular event.
And then at this point, I think, is when she sends him to get the car because she finally relents. So as he's getting the car, which, as you said, they've both been having quite a lot to drink, so this is not a good idea.
Right.
She sings Now. And it starts with Now, Do It Now, which again reminded me of a show from 5 years earlier, got Little Shop.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, this is very intense, very driving music as they're in a crescendo toward the brink of the affair.
Stop analyzing every pro and con quick before the mood is gone. Now is prime. Now we're gone as if we weren't. Now tomorrow is too late. Now this moment soon will pass. Now, for Christ's sakes, move your ass.
There's a high urgency here, as if I'm going to change my mind. You have 5 minutes. And it's not a short, it's a short song. There's not a lot to it. Because once you yell now, like, you can't linger on that moment.
Anything else is no longer now.
Right. You got to move through it.
This is the one song where I don't feel Alison Fraser's performance is up to most of the album for her with the accent. It feels like she's trying to go back to British, which I don't know why, because she's American. But some of the words that she's saying sound much more like her first act persona than as Monica.
Maybe this is her patter song diction.
Maybe. Like when she finally gets to move your ass, it feels strange. Like, I don't know who would actually say it exactly that way anywhere.
Well, Eliza Doolittle would.
Maybe. Okay. I do think, so we're building, and she ends on this high note, and then we have a fade out. Why do we have a fade out? This is a big energetic number. I hate fade outs in general, as I've said many times on this podcast.
Yeah.
But especially a number like this that is huge, high energy, end on a high note, just cut it off. Don't linger and let it dwindle.
To my point from earlier, maybe they were trying to avoid applause.
Yeah, and this, in the show, I think it transitions into some softer music, maybe to avoid applause.
Yeah.
But this is an example of, for the album, just have it end on a note. Like, things like No One Is Alone doesn't end in the theater, but for the sake of the album, they finish the last word.
Right.
So things like that, I would love that experience on the album of having a satisfying ending to the song instead of trailing off. Maybe that's just me.
Well, it also seems like, why are they doing an album, an edit where it repeat and fade sort of thing? That's the thing that only recordings can do.
Yeah, so it doesn't
Theater-
Netflix on stage.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
you're right.
I don't like it.
It's an odd choice.
And then after this, there is a reprise of Think of the Odds, briefly, that's not on the album. So we get another thing that, maybe we could have included something else if we had just cut those 2 songs that we didn't like and gotten rid of this extra music for the fade out. Oh, well.
It's a full CD,
Yeah. And then they come back and walk in as I believe their spouses are now, it's now morning and they're awake. It's not entirely clear if the spouses are really there or if they're doing their narrator thing by being in the room. But
Right.
they come
I'm not
back.
sure it matters, but it is
Yeah.
not clear.
So I think it's supposed to be that they left and pretty quickly came back, deciding not to go through with it.
Right.
But exactly how long it took them to leave and come back with that realization is not entirely clear. But now they sing Romantic Notions. This is the close of the second act story. And this is him defending having romantic thoughts. Like she wants to go back to pretending that this didn't happen. He's like, no, I think this is fun. Like, I don't understand his rationale for this song.
On a summer night, sharing drinks by candlelight, we invite romantic notions.
Here's the thing. This is the only song on this album that is longer than 4 minutes. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I also, when I saw the show, I remember crying in the theater during this number.
It's a beautiful number.
It's beautiful. And they're like full-throatedly, all 4 of them, all in with the idea that we all need fantasies. We all need a little bit of hope when there is no hope. We all need our privacy and our secret thoughts that makes us human and makes us better people. And it's also a surprise. There's 2 surprises, like you said, like they didn't go through with it, but also he didn't learn a lesson from that. He still thinks it was the right thing to do, and he's going to probably try it again with somebody else later.
Yep.
Because
Now he's aware that he's unhappy.
right, and that hope and dreaming are his ways out. And not only does he believe it, he convinces the other 3 people to join him on this song.
Yeah.
When the fog rolls in and the moon is paper thin, people spin romantic notions.
Because this is his song and they all join in. And then I was a weepy mess at age 26 in the Helen Hayes Theater.
Yeah. And I think this is some of Scott Bakula's most lovely singing on the album. Like, this is the best he sounds. So I understand why he's being convincing, because he sounds great. But
Right.
unfortunately, this is where we have the bit from Robert Hoschauer where it's not quite so nice. You're like, ugh.
What? He was doing it, trying to do a riff or something, and just,
You couldn't do another take?
it's just flat. And then they're like, we don't have time to do it again.
It's
And
full
he
rough.
wasn't on in a separate booth or something.
Yeah, probably.
I'm like, what was that?
But for the most part, we have a lot of, once they join him, beautiful 4-part harmonies and beautiful lush, as much as the orchestration can be, with 7 pit musicians behind him. They
But you got a
sound
D-
great.
There's like a DX7 or 2 in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, they're switching their sounds around pretty well.
Yeah.
We can light a spark when the world is growing dark. Let your vision soar. That's what dreams are for.
And I have to hand it to them. Notions is a tough word to end a song gracefully, but they do a pretty good job at it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the easiest of words to make sound lovely and
Right.
just calm, but they do a decent job.
Though right at the end, somebody went to the second syllable before the other 3. He goes, no, shuns. I'm like, oh, right at the end.
Oh,
somebody
right
didn't
before the
catch,
finish line.
Somebody didn't catch the rallentando.
Yeah. Gotta always watch.
But it's very moving. And I didn't see it coming. And it's sort of a refreshingly modern view of love.
Yeah.
And again, this was 37 years ago.
And however it made you feel during the show, we're ending on a hopeful note, which is good for word of mouth to make people feel good when they're leaving the theater.
Right. Like maybe you will fall in love with the very next person you meet or the next person you fantasize about. Like it could happen. And
Have your
there's
romantic
nothing
notions.
there's nothing wrong with wanting it to happen or hoping for it.
Cherish your romantic notions.
And then in the curtain call,
Yes, we finally
We
get
have
the
a-
title number.
the Manhattan Transfer show up and we have
Thank
a
you.
jazz vocal number.
That's exactly what I put down. Where is this coming from? So the
don't
last song is
know.
Romance, Romance, which we had hinted at in the beginning, so it's a nice bookend, like I said. But why are we now in vocal jazz? Like, it is absolutely Manhattan Transfer.
Guess what's all the rage again? Taking center stage again. Romance.
Like, we're still a couple years from City of Angels, people. Come on, don't jump the gun.
Right.
I don't.
That's right. You didn't steal
It
it.
sounds lovely, but why are we just now choosing this style?
I mean, I don't know. Why not?
Why not? It's not that long, but it's pretty. It's a good curtain call song.
Yeah, it was refreshing and fun, and there's a title song, but nothing about any of the characters implies contemporary jazz like this. I was like, wait, what? Oh, okay, we're all just gonna bop along, I guess.
Why not?
Because it's a thing.
Yeah.
Guess who's the newest recruit? Everywhere that's prominent. What's the mood predominant? Romance. Romance.
So that's the album. The show ran for 297 performances at the Helen Hayes Theater, now just the Hayes Theater. So it definitely was good that it was in a smaller house to help with the intimacy of the show. Had 5 Tony nominations, but 0 wins. Tough competition that year.
Right. Well, 297, I said 6 months. That's more than 6 months. That's more like 9 months.
Yeah, it opened May 1st and closed January 15th.
Ah, okay. So it did last through New Year's.
Yeah, they got their holiday surge and said, see
There
ya.
you go. Very good.
So yeah, this is definitely an album that got lost in the shuffle, but I think there's a lot of great stuff here.
At the time, I'm like, oh, every theater is going to do this show. I mean, so cheap to produce,
Yeah.
and the songs are so great, and there's acting moments going on. And I don't know that many people performed it. And I don't know
No.
why. I keep waiting for, like, why are people not doing Romance, Romance?
Yeah, and this could be even fun to do a revival. It's relatively cheap. It'd be catchy. It could get much more attention now. This is
Right.
We're reviving a lot of things from this era with Chess this year and other things announced or planned.
Right.
So why not
Right.
give it another chance?
I would think.
Yeah. Should we do some scoring?
I got mine all right here.
All right. So we will start with composition. For the music, out of 15 points, what are you going to give it?
I went with 11, partly because of my problem with the orchestrations in the first act, but also a little bit of the fact that those 2 numbers in the second act just didn't do it for me. And some of the inconsistencies of why is this character singing this way at this point in the show that we sort of alluded to. I
Yeah.
like the music a lot, but
When it hits, it
Are
hits.
the-
But when it doesn't, it's...
right,
Yeah.
not all the songs are great. None of the songs are truly classic Broadway songs.
Yeah, I went
So-
with 12, largely the same logic, except the orchestrations in Act 1 were more successful for me than for you. So we're not
Fair
too far
enough.
off. For lyrics out of 15,
I went with 14.
I went with
There's- there-
11 because there's such great ones in the first act, and then so much of the second act felt maybe it was intentionally less interesting, but some of the things that just felt like craft issues, not choices, with the missing rhymes and the strange syllabic stress and things like that.
I can see that. There are some problems in the second act, but as I said earlier, I think it's harder to write songs for people who are just like you
Yeah,
because it's not dialogue.
very fair. For performance, out of 15, what would you give for technical?
I have 13.
Okay, I put 11. I think Allison Fraser is absolutely up there at the top. Scott Bakula does not have the most classical voice of technical proficiency, but does use it effectively. And then there are just notes
Right.
here and there that aren't quite in tune, things like that. But yeah, if it was Allison Fraser alone, she'd be up at 15. But with the rest of them together, I think it just pulls it down a little bit for me.
I like the fact that his singing voice sounds like his speaking voice, which is probably a contemporary approach. But in musical theater, we want people to sing the way they talk so that we know who it is that's singing now, because you're too far away and now you sound all different because now you're using your classical technique. Like, that's not what we're going for anymore.
Yeah. As I've been going along, I've been thinking more about it as if somebody was listening to this album and the only thing they care about is the technical performance of the singer. They don't care about theater. They don't care about story. They just want to hear the top voices singing songs. What would they think of this album? So that's where I think I'm trying to get pulled down a little bit more by choices that are absolutely correct for the material, but are not technically the best voices if someone's only interested in that.
I guess I also gave him a little grace for the fact that he has higher notes than I was expecting from him.
Yeah, that's true.
But he goes up and it doesn't seem to be a problem.
Which is especially interesting with the speak singing quality that tends to have limitations on the range. So the fact that he can still get up there is good.
Right. But like you said, in the last song, he's really just like singing full out. And I'm like, is Scott Bakula singing this? It was resourceful, I guess.
Yeah, there we go. And then for voice acting, out of 10.
I went with an 8.5 because I actually scored each act separately.
Gotcha.
And then blended the scores. So Act 2, I gave them a 9. Act 1, I gave them an 8.
Okay.
So that's why I went with 8.5.
I'm at 8. I kind of similarly averaged the 2. I think I was probably more coming at it from a 9 and a 7 with Act 1 and Act 2 and getting to 8 in the middle. I feel like by nature of being normal people, you can't go quite as big with the voice acting and have it feel real. You can't be over the top as much as you can with the silly characters of Act 1. So, that's still a good number for a modern setting, for sure.
Yeah.
For narrative, out of 15 points, how much does this feel like a theater album and not just a pop album?
I went with 12.5.
Okay.
It's pretty successful and more theatrical than radio, even though each of the two main characters does have several solos by themselves. But the duets and the quartets really seem to have narrative drive and theatrical spark.
Yeah. I actually went with 14 on this. I felt like nothing felt dropped in out of another show except for the old people number, which still very much fits in with everything. It doesn't feel out of place. But that's the only one that you kind of just drop into any other show and it probably still work just as well. I think even the ones that are largely based on exploring a single emotion at the time, like now, it still feels rooted in the story and what we're doing. So I don't ever feel like I've lost track of what I'm listening to.
They all seem like they're from this show.
Yeah.
Good point.
And then completeness, out of 10 points.
I went with 6.5. A little bit lacking. Sometimes you're just like, wait, if I hadn't seen the video, if I couldn't get a copy of the script, what the hell's happening right now? Or how did they get from the previous song to this song? Sometimes it's very clear, but other times it's not clear.
And sometimes it matters more than others. Like in the first act, I feel like, yes, you're missing bits of dialogue and book scenes, but it doesn't hinder your ability to follow what's important in the story, which is just the affair going on or the relationship. Versus Act 2, those absences become much more apparent in how do we get from here to here. It can be temporarily throw you for a loop until you regain your bearings a little bit. So I went with 6.
Right. Agreed.
It's not too far off. For uniqueness, out of 10 points.
I went with 8. I do think the second act is unique. The first act, I'm torn between, is it bad that it reminds me of other musicals, or is it reassuring that it reminds me of other musicals? That they are Broadway people, that they do know what they're doing. And even if this operetta wouldn't pass muster in Vienna 120 years ago, not a lot of shows try to do this without hiring fully trained classical voices, which I don't think any of these people are, though Deborah Graham, I think, probably is the most legit of the 4. But it's a pretty unique show in a lot of ways, and I think the album does reflect that.
Yeah, I went with 7. I think the first act, in many ways, like you said, is very familiar in that it evokes a lot of other things. I think that's a strength for the show, but as far as uniqueness, a little bit less unique in that sense. And the second act didn't feel as unique as you were describing to me of the kind of modern 80s thing. I think there's a lot of shows that have that kind of especially the feel of the music, like Baby, other things like that are in that genre. But then I think what they lack for there, they do make up a bit in the structure of having 2 entirely unrelated shows in one and having vastly different musical styles between the 2.
Right.
Because even Sunday in the Park with George, it still feels very Sondheim in Act 1 and Act 2. There are things that he leans into a bit more for each act to highlight its setting, but they don't feel as divorced from each other as the Little Comedy and Summer Share. So that did bring back a little bit for me to finally arrive at 7.
That's fair.
For audio quality, or as I think I'm going to start kind of changing around to be more recording production value. So this is the audio quality, the tracks listed, the overall construction of the album itself.
I went with 4.5. I think the sound overall is quite good. There's a couple of little problems that we've already mentioned, but compact discs were less than a decade old. And I was actually working in record stores at this time. I mean, I was doing theater and music and then working in record stores. And because I collected records and I had degrees in music, that they're like, you know music, please come work in our record store. So this was the whole changeover from LPs were going out and cassettes were very popular. CDs were coming in, and then CD singles that came in different sizes and had different sort of adapters. And then we're like, why are we selling photograph needles? Like, no one's buying these. It was a really exciting time for the recording industry. And I think it sounds good.
Yeah. I went with 4. I haven't been doing any half points yet in the podcast. So for the reasons that we talked about earlier, I knocked it off just the 1 point.
Yeah.
And then for artwork, out of 5 points.
I went with 4. I think that the logo is very good, but it looks good sitting on the shelf.
Yeah. I went with 2. For me, this is not the most effective. I think, 1, the kind of gold color that they're using for, I'm not the biggest fan of in the romance heart. Mm-hmm. It kind of just looks dingy to me. And I do appreciate that in that logo, I actually just realized today for the first time that the top romance is a fancier serif font and the bottom is a more modern sans serif font to reflect the 2 acts. But I don't think that's evident enough to really hit home the message of what it is. It's more like, if you know, you know. And I don't like that his black tux completely blends into the black background. And it just makes it much less visually interesting. I think if you're going to have that, I would have the 2 of them be bigger because there's a lot of empty space over there. And I would have the background not be black, maybe like a gray, something that you can see his whole outline. Just, yeah, so
black is classy, but you're right that you can't see his back at all.
You just see his head and the front of his
shirt. That's all there is. And there's nothing about the contemporary half other than the change of font.
Unlike Sunday in the Park, which does that very effectively.
So I think it's pretty, and maybe, well, because of the heart shape, it's kind of soft and, feminine, warm, but they could have done more. You're right.
So that brings us to, for me, a score of 75, for you, 82, and the average between us is 78.5. So that's pretty good, especially for this season so far.
Into the Woods is hard to beat.
Yeah. And this season has some less than stellar cast albums. And there are only 8 of them in this season. But by the time this comes out, there'll be more of those episodes released so people can follow along and compare how you think we're doing. And then we'll regroup at the end of the season.
I think it's a great concept that you have.
Oh, thank you.
And every person I mentioned it to, they're like, wow, that's like hardcore. And I'm like, well, Alex doesn't mess around. Like,
not
if we're in, we're in. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk about every track. And like, every track. And I'm like, every track.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today for this album that I am so glad to know now when I didn't really know it before.
You're welcome.
And I loved hearing all of your insider knowledge from having seen the original production. Very jealous of that. And of seeing Into the Woods twice.
In the same weekend. This is a show where I was like, oh, I'm going to be the proponent of the show anytime it comes up in the future. And then it just never came up. I'm like, a romance. I'm like, well, we're doing, we're going to do something. I'm like, but romance. It's so
more
interesting.
Often the response would be, the what?
That a lot of people are like, oh, I've heard of that, but I don't know anything about it, but I've heard of it. I'm like, are you lying? Or you should know about it because 5 Tony nominations is nothing to sneeze at ever. And these 2 stars went on to bigger and better things very shortly after doing this show.
Oh, yes.
And it's so evident when you hear this recording that they're both so good and in their own way. But when you meet find common ground in an artistic project, it's so cool. And then we are allowed a window into that every time we listen to this recording.
Which I will definitely do again in the future.
Very good.
All right, this has been so much fun. If people want to follow you, stay up with what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
It's Paul W. Thompson Music on Facebook and YouTube. My website is paulwthompson.com. And like I said, I've been writing this book forever and ever. If it's published and if it's called Into the Show Tunes, I will activate showtune.info, which I've owned that website forever and have done nothing with.
Oh, no. Well, you can follow the podcast on Instagram at Little Things We Hear Together, or you can email me littlethingsweheartogether@gmail.com. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes. Rate and review the podcast wherever you get your podcast. That's very helpful and appreciated. Next week's episode will be the 1985 Philadelphia cast album of The Gospel at Colonus. So that'll be a fun show that also many people have not heard of, but got a lot of good music in as well. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're welcome. Have a great day.